Well, I think it's kind of a challenge for political analysts like us because, we spend the last 6 months of 2008 or most of 2008 talking almost exclusively about the election, and then suddenly have election, and then we have to sort of suddenly switch gears, kind of like going from drive to reverse or reverse to drive, and start talking about what does it mean and sort of the policy implications and how's Washington going to change, how's policy going to change as a result of the election. I would argue, though, that the key time was less the November election and really more the economic meltdown in September. Because whether Barack Obama or John McCain or Hillary Clinton, for that matter, regardless of which one of those three or any of the others won, what they would have intended a year or 2 years ago to do if they were elected is going to be totally different because of the economic meltdown. That economic stimulus is going to be the name of the game for the next year or so. It's going to be, how do we get out of this ditch? And every view, every issue, every proposal is going to be viewed through a prism of how do we get out of that. The other thing is, with the economic crisis, the whole view towards regulation will have completely shifted. In the Reagan, post-Reagan era, it's been let the markets work, and government should sort of get out of the way of free enterprise and only interfere when they absolutely have to, but let markets work. Well, the pendulum probably went too far that way. And now it's going to start swinging and probably swing too far the other way. And where the bias, the natural bias of government is no longer going to be let the markets work, the less government is best government, and it's going to be towards more regulation. And just as sure as the sun comes up in the east, the pendulum is going to swing too far on the pro-regulation side, and then hopefully after that we can strike a balance. But I would argue it was the economic crisis has created a pro-regulatory environment that would have existed whether the victor was McCain or Obama or Hillary Clinton. We're going into it's a new era that's going to be much more friendly to regulation and frankly a lot more tougher for American business. And so I would argue that after the economic crisis, a McCain administration would look different than it would have before, an Obama, a Clinton, any of them. It would be it's a different time. I think that you're going to see some of the same issues that would have been huge had we not had an economic crisis. They're going to come up also, but just the priorities and how they're addressed may be different. I think healthcare is going to be huge. Obviously, energy and climate change are going to be huge issues, but they're going to be taken on, with a view or at least an eye towards the economy. Well, I think that Republicans are probably going to pull back a little bit and decide, let's give this guy some rope and let him try to hang himself. I mean, Republicans know that their brand has been badly damaged. The favorability ratings for the Republican Party are as low as they've been in many years, and just to attack for the sake of attacking doesn't help Republicans. They've got to come up with a new way of rebuilding, rebranding their party. I've always thought that each of the parties have core values, and that for Democrats it's compassion and for Republicans it's competence. But that competence value for the Republican Party has been damaged the last few years. A little bit of Katrina, a little bit of Iraq deficit scandals. They've hurt themselves there. And they've got to come up with a way of rebuilding their corporate image, rebuilding their brand, and maybe come up with some new ideas. They're the party of smaller government, less taxes. They've got to come up with smarter, leaner ways of governing, ideas, and come up with what's the post-George W. Bush Republican Party going to look like. So they've got to reformulate where they are, and at the same time, we're looking at just different dynamics. I mean, right now, deficits simply don't matter for next year or two. I mean, the mandate for President Obama, for Congress, is going to be get us out of the ditch, we don't care right now how much it costs. You just got to get us out of the ditch. Well, the old joke is that Democrats fall in love and Republicans fall in line. You know, the Democrats want to fall in love with a candidate, and that's what they do. And that Republicans are more hierarchical, that they tend to nominate whoever's turn it was, you know, however that's defined. And, you know, 8 years back in 2000, well, we're going with President Bush, former President Bush's son. And then in 2008, they nominated the guy that was the runner-up to George W. Bush back in 2000 with John McCain. Well, if Republicans always go with whoever's next in line, well, who's next in line? Is it Mitt Romney or Mike Huckabee, who were kind of the runners-up to John McCain for the Republican nomination this year? I don't know. Or was it Sarah Palin, who was his running mate, who certainly stirred a lot of interest? And if you look at the polls and you ask Republicans, now this is Republicans only, who would you like to see run, or fave-unfave ratings for each prominent Republicans, Sarah Palin scores at the very top. Or do you see, you know, fresh faces come online, and you know, the new governor of my home state, Bobby Jindal, recently sort of expressed, his name had been thrown around a lot, and although he expressed some reluctance to run in 2012, but certainly there are going to be some new names and some rising stars, and you know, that's kind of how the political process works, is that sometimes you have forest fires, and forest fires can be good because it causes regeneration and new growth, and it clears out a lot of the dead wood. Well, maybe this election was like a forest fire, and it's cleared out some of the dead wood, so maybe some of the younger generation, some of the, and whether it's Bobby Jindal or some of the other, you know, young talent coming up in the Republican Party comes on. But it's too early to say now who is it going to be, but clearly the Republican Party needs to cast a wider net, and they need to address, you know, some of their bigger issues. For example, on the immigration issue, they can't be seen as anti-Hispanic. You can't win a general election in this country with just the votes of non-Hispanic whites, of whites only, or particularly white men. There aren't enough of us left. I mean, they've got to reach out, and you know, they're not doing well with African Americans. They're not doing well with Hispanics. They didn't do particularly well with Asians, and they did poorly with women. And they even lost narrowly. They lost the suburban vote. I mean, the Republican Party's they've got a lot of work they've got to do. What I've found over the last couple of years is that people see all the political shows on television, on cable, and they're all left-right. You know, somebody sitting in the blue Democratic chair or the red Republican chair or a liberal or conservative chair. And yet, as I speak to trade associations, corporate groups, other groups around the country, that there's a real thirst out there for hearing someone who's going to shoot down the middle and be kind of an honest broker on politics, and someone who's going to explain, you know, why is this happening? What is going on, without going through the lens of either liberalism or conservatism? And they you know, they want someone who lives inside of this weird world of the Beltway, explaining what is going on and why is this happening and why are they not doing X or Y or Z. And one of the things I enjoy about Q&A, I've heard myself. I love hearing the questions and the comments from people in the audience, and to try to explain things that they can't. They read the newspapers every morning, they watch the television news, and they're asking their TV sets questions, and the TV set doesn't answer. And they'd love to have somebody that's sort of a Washington insider come out and sort of be there and to answer whatever the question has been gnawing at them for a long time. And that's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing that.